In the waning weeks of March 1944, as the sun inexorably ascended toward its vernal zenith each successive day, casting elongated shadows that danced like specters across the snowfields and thawing the crystalline crusts beneath our skis with a relentless, golden insistence, the reconnaissance forays within the division's sprawling sector burgeoned into a feverish rhythm of vigilance and venture. 12 hours of burgeoning daylight transformed the frozen tableau into a hunter's paradise. Vast lakes encased in armor-plate ice that gleamed like polished steel under the low-angled rays. Snowbound terrain of vast, undulating canvas of white drifts sculpted by wind into sinuous dunes and treacherous hollows. Ideal for the lithe, predatory grace of Gebirgsjäger ski patrols that glided through the wilderness like wolves on the prowl, their edges whispering against the powder with a hush that masked the creak of bindings and the muffled crunch of poles. It was imperative, nay existential, on the northern flank, where outposts clung to existence like lichens to granite, fragile bastions against the void, for the perpetuity of those isolated redoubts, and the division's sinew as a cohesive force to ferret out the enemy skulking in the Taiga's tenebrous folds, to unearth and eradicate their lairs amid the labyrinth of frozen mires and conifer-cloaked valleys, lest a single undetected bivouac swell into an avalanche of assault. The winter, though it had gnashed its teeth with less ferocity than the preceding trio of Arctic infernos, its blizzards more sporadic tantrums and sustained sieges, its gales less laced with the howl of starvation winds, had nonetheless tested our mettle in ways that retrospect rendered nigh miraculous. How could a front line, that tenuous thread of humanity strung across such primordial hostility, endure the Boreal onslaught? Yet endure it did, fortified by bunkers evolved into veritable troglodyte citadels, excavations deepened by pick and powder into the permafrost's unyielding grip, crowned with multiple strata of felled logs hewn from the surrounding spruce and pine, their resinous hearts interlocked like the clasped hands of the fallen, impervious even to the thunderous kiss of heavy artillery shells that detonated overhead in cascades of splintered earth and echoing fury, yielding interiors that, while Spartan, proffered a modicum of respite, earthen floors strewn with spruce boughs for insulation against the upwelling chill, low ceilings ribbed with rafters that trapped the meager warmth from a sheet metal stove fed with scavenged peat bricks, the air thick with the acrid tang of kerosene lanterns flickering like defiant stars against the gloom. The baleful toll on morale exacted by the interminable Stygian pall from November's nadir through February's feeble thaw, a darkness so profound it seeped into the soul like ink into parchment, breeding phantoms in the corners of the eye and whispers of despair in the lulls between watches, was ameliorated, if not exorcised, by the battalion's schnapps ration, a crystalline elixir of clear, white spirit distilled from God knows what grains pilfered from Russian depots, doled out with uncharacteristic largesse weekly on Saturdays when the frost etched filigree on the bunker walls, its fiery descent a sacrament that thawed sinews and kindled camaraderie around tales spun from the embers, voices rising in ragged harmony to old folk ditties or ribald verses improvised from the barracks repertoire. The interminable vigils within those log-lined lairs were whiled away in the thrall of 17 a poker kin begotten of boredom and Baltic winters, stakes heaped in fistfuls of rubles, the ephemeral currency of our meager pay, crisp notes bearing Lenin's stern visage that mocked our exile, utterly inutile save for these subterranean salons where bluffs were called with the same sang-froid as on the line. Fortunes won and lost in the lamplight's jaundiced glow, laughter barking sharp against the wind's whine outside. I surmise what buttressed us through that polar purgatory unscathed, beyond the crude comforts of cordwood and camaraderie, was our unquenchable youth, that feral vitality pulsing like sap in springtime bark, allied to a certain esprit of bravado, a defiant swagger that scoffed at the statistics of survival and toasted the absurd with raised mess tins, turning terror into tall tale. Of course, as youths forged in the fire of adolescence's appetites, we were ravenous perpetually, a hunger gnawing deeper than the wolves at our heels, insatiable beyond any rationing regime's parsimonious decree. No tin sausage or hardtack heel could sate the void that echoed with memories of mother's pot roasts or Black Forest gatto, savored in pre-war idyls. The constant nervous strain of ears attuned to the snap of a twig or the sibilant slide of skis in the snow, amplifying the ache into an omnipresent specter that shadowed every swallow. Most of us harbored a voracious yen for confections that bordered on mania. So when the weekly allotment of mixed fruit jam arrived, a viscous ambrosia of stewed lingonberries and cloudberries swirled in cloying syrup, doled from dented tins that wept sticky rivulets down our chins, we fell upon it with the ferocity of famished foundlings, devouring the lot in a gluttonous gale that left spoons licked clean and lips smeared purple. A fleeting orgy of sweetness amid the salt of sweat and strife. Early that month, as the equinox's promise hovered like a half-remembered dream, I was summoned to the company command post, a dugout hewn into the hillside like a fox's den, its entrance flanked by sandbags bloated with frozen gravel, the air within redolent of damp wool and the faint, oily bite of machine lubricant, where terse words from the adjutant, his face a map of stubble and strain under the helmet's shadow, informed me of my imminent transfer to SS Reconnaissance Battalion 6 Nord. Placed on the northern flank's knife edge where the Taiga thinned to tundra's brink, a maneuver orchestrated by Manhart's deft strings pulled at division staff's loom, favors traded in the currency of shared foxholes and whispered recommendations over maps unfurled by lantern light. The precise alchemy of his influence eluded me forever, veiled in the bureaucracy's fog, but my sentiments swirled in a maelstrom of ambivalence. On one flank, the pang of parting from the altar's squad, that ragged fraternity tempered in the trench's forge. Heinrich Paramount, his laconic wisdom a lodestar in the murk, his wry sides a balm for the bone-chill nights when doubt gnawed like frostbite. On the other, a thrill thrumming in my veins for the open expanse, where my training as a ski patroller, drills on Bavarian drifts that mimicked this merciless mirror, found its truest theater, the inhospitable immensity of ridge and rill more kin to my spirit than the bunker's claustrophobic clasp, where walls closed like a coffin and the world narrowed to the slit of a loophole. At any rate, it is not least for yet another rendezvous with the wild geese, those harbingers of migration, whose V-formation cleaved the vault like fate's arrow, that I reckon the long-range ski raid of that season a vignette indelible in the volunteers' visceral portrait, their clarion call a clarion for our own Odyssey. The flight of the geese heeded nature's inexorable summons as we, in our hubris or homage, were consigned to heed our mission's merciless mandate in the near Arctic North, where the aurora's veil mocked our mortal machinations. A few dawns hence, I found myself jostled aboard a truck growling northward along the artery he'd hewn from the wilderness's recalcitrant flesh. This road a monumental corduroy leviathan engineered by our pioneers' unyielding toil, axes ringing like anthems against ancient trunks, saws keening through sap-stiffened pine to birth planks that bridge the bogs. Snaked across the hills, humped backs, and swamps' sullen maws, some 10 kilometers distant from and eerily parallel to the front's frayed hem, a lifeline of logs layered in labyrinthine precision. Tree trunks felled from the flanking forests and pegged with iron spikes that rusted red as blood in the brine of summer rains. Its surface a rhythmic ripple of wood under wheel that jarred the spine like a perpetual palpitation. It stood as the rustic riposte to the Russian rail's iron inexorability snaking parallel on their side, a disparity that crystallized the lopsided ledger our logisticians ledgered daily. Their steel veins fed by Murmansk's endless bounty, convoys clanking with crates of Kalashnikovs and Katyushas under Stalin's stern gaze, while ours groaned under the yoke of horseflesh and half-tracks mired in mud. Supply lines stretched taut as bowstrings across a continent's contempt. The thoroughfare terminated at a lakeside limbo, still and frozen as a sepulchre slab, its icy expanse a vast, vitreous void flanked by a handful of sheds, ramshackle lean-tos of corrugated tin and tarpaulin sagging under snow's remnant shroud, walls patched with plywood scavenged from crashed crates, and 2 overturned boats, their hulls upturned like the carcasses of beached leviathans, ribs of rotwood exposed to the elements, a locale steeped in infinite loneliness that pressed upon the soul like the weight of the world unspoken, where the wind keened through the birches like a widow's wail, and the only echo was the crunch of one's own boot on the crust. A sleigh, its runners etched with frost like veins of silver, bore us eastward across the lake's unyielding pain, the blades hissing a sibilant serenade over the ice that groaned faintly beneath as if protesting the intrusion. The air crystalline with cold that nipped at nostrils and numbed fingertips despite the gloves of reindeer hide we'd bartered from Lap herders in fleeting truces. On the opposing verge, a diminutive settlement materialized from the monochrome milieu like a mirage conjured from the white. A clutch of log cabins, their walls of axe-hewn timber chinked with moss and clay, roofs sagging under burdens of sod and snow that dripped now in tentative thaws, emergent as oases in the desert of desolation, serving as the reconnaissance battalion's bulwark on the front's frozen frontier, barricading the defile betwixt 2 further lakes whose waters slumbered some kilometers eastward, their surfaces a snare for the unwary. Upon tendering my report at the command post, a yurt-like hovel of logs lashed with wire, its interior aglow with the ruddy flicker of a pot-belly stove that belched smoke through a tin chimney, maps pinned to walls with bayonets, and the air thick with a fog of unwashed wool and wet boots, I gleaned my billet, Manhart's company, a cadre of shadows schooled in the art of silence. As fate would weave, 3 ski patrols were primed for parallel peregrination in mere days, autonomous arrows loosed into the void, helmed by a triad of officers. Manhart's measured mettle, a Norwegian's Nordic stoicism, his eyes like fjords under furrowed brows, and to my astonishment that widened like a shell crater, von Hartmann himself, gaunt as a gale-scoured oak, his limp a legacy of Latiga's leaden legacy. With a tri-squad tally of 32 souls, 2 under Offizier's unyielding oversight and 1 Obersturmführer's oversight, we formed the leanest lance, our phalanx augmented by Norwegian volunteers whose lilting lilt evoked fjords and fjord-faring kin. Our edict: infiltrate the Russian rearguard's ragged ranks, harvest hostages from a haze, and hasten homeward sans sojourn, while cohorts coursed north and south for a duo of dawn's delving. Preliminaries pulsed with purpose. I claimed skis waxed to whisper, ashen blades curved like scimitars, bindings buckled with the precision of a watchmaker, and supple ski boots molded from oiled leather that creaked softly with each flex, retaining my carabiner 98K, its walnut stock scarred by stockades of strife, a familiar talisman against the unknown. Half our host hefted submachine guns, MP-40s with stocks folded like conspirators' whispers, magazines curved with the promise of 32 rounds of 9mm spite, while actors, those faithful 4-legged factotums, with coats coarse as corduroy, were laden with largesse. Ammunition crates corded tight, rations in waxed paper parcels of pemmican and pilot bread, sundries for the snare like signal mirrors that could flash like fallen stars, and a specialty for such spectral sorties, a nutty ambrosia of almonds, roasted to richness, raisins plump as summer grapes, blended in tins that rattled like maracas of morale, tents of oiled silk sufficient for a squad's huddle, and spare skis for the shackled prizes we pursued completed the cavalcade. We were slated for sundown shroud, banking on the bomb of night to blind the foe, to ensnare their echelon ere Aurora's blush betrayed us. We mustered at 7 bells, the gloaming gathering like a cloak round our shoulders. Manhart brandished a Russian PPSH-41, its drum magazine a helical horn of plenty with 71 rounds of 7.62 mm that spun like a devil's carousel, indestructible as Ivan's resolve, never failing in the foulest foul, a trophy coveted like a knight's captured blade. Helmets forsaken for the fleet-footed fray, our Bergmutzen perch pert, ear flaps tied atop to unburden the head. Half an hour's hike honed our edge, a brief bivouac to bind blisters and banter low, then infiltration in single file through the minefield's merciful meridian, a corridor cleared by sapper's scruple, stakes marking the safe seam like breadcrumbs in the bramble. We slithered into no man's land's navel, semi-darkness a semitone under a firmament fretted with stars like diamonds strewn by a profligate god. The snow, a silver sheet absorbing our silhouettes. Ivans, we inferred, infested the interstice, twixt two lakes lapping 10 and 12 kilometers eastward of our RHK, a rearward redoubt ripe for raid. Our itinerary inscribed a vast arc encircling that enigma, arcing into their aft to strike like adders from ambush. The patrol, paragons of the pale, possessed the place like familiars, charts chronicling the locks by numeral, Lake 20 in numeral inked in indigo, rivers ribboned in blue, flat fells furrowed faint, prior peregrinations embroidered the esoterica, spots stigmatized with scarlet stars where siblings had spilled their last in skirmishes shrouded in snow, left to the wolves as memorials too perilous to reclaim. Yet in the colossal vastness and desolation that dwarfed us all, Taiga's tapestry threadbare with thorn and thicket, where the wind wailed without witness, I never wholly shed the sensation of pioneering a pristine perdition, no boot nor blade before ours blemishing the bridal white. We threaded thin woodland, where birches bowed like ballerinas in breeze, traversed open expanses echoing with our own exhalations, wrestled thick undergrowth that tugged at tunics like insistent imps, vaulted ditches frozen to facets and ford frozen fells, detoured rocks rugged as rucks and fallen trees felled by forgotten storms that barred the way like barricades of the damned. Sometimes the skis sigh smooth to silk, akias drawn in ruts rhythmic as respiration, the tour a tango of toil that slicked our brows despite the boreal bite, breaths pluming like signals in the stilly air. Months mired in trenches had atrophied my alacrity. Now and again, the file faltered as vanguard vetted the vista, securing the sector with sweeps of scopes and silent signals. The hush so profound it amplified the pulse's percussion and the blood's rush roaring in ears like a river in spate. We paused at midnight's mantle in a modest glade girded by mingled birch and spruce, sentinel silver and somber. Here, relative refuge reigned, permitting each squad a spark of solace. Fires kindled in the Finn's fashion, cylindrical cans punctured with awls just above the base admitting air's alms, strips of birch bark. Its outer layer peeled parchment thin, inner cambium a tinderbox of latent flame, tossed in to ignite with a sigh, chips of heartwood sustaining the subtle blaze, smokeless as a scout secret, sufficient to summon steaming tea from canteens cradled in the coals, the brew bitter bright with the forest's own essence. Men milled murmuring in muted tones, vapors veiling faces flushed from a flame. Overhead, the sky sprawled a glittering vault, constellations cavorting in cold clarity. I pondered how such celestial splendor eluded the ether of home, where city glows gagged the galaxy's gaze. I conversed with Herwig, the Norwegian squad's helmsman, a Viking visage framed by frost-rimed whiskers, who'd shadowed Manhart on myriad missions and evinced devotion bordering on dogma. His tales of fjord-flung forays, laced with loyalties, low burn. Abruptly, Manhart materialized like a myth from a mist, digit aloft in joining silence. Attend the ether. Hark. We hearkened, rapt as raptors. Then, the trumpet trill of Geese pierced the pall, aloft yet afar, drawing nigh in nasal fanfare. All ears attuned, eyes eclipsed upward. A vast V of the vanguard etched against the ebon, arrowing austral to boreal, their shrill, plaintive paean an endless elegy that echoed the emptiness. We tracked their transit till tenebrosity swallowed them. Inexorably, the folk sleet welled within, verse after verse weed voiced in judging zeal. Wild geese are rushing through the night, with shrill cries onto the north, unsteady journey. Look out, look out. What has become of us? Sail on, you grayish host. Sail on to the north. And were we to sail, without return, in fall your rush will be for us. And amen. Frontward more. Sweeps of sweeps with binoculars bite. Security's sacrament at each stasis. Circa 1,000 hours, Lake 20 loomed, 6 kilometers south of our nocturnal nave. a numeral inked in enigma. Manhart's murmur motion to mire. We melted into the mantle for the lake's lustrous league, a pane pristine amid woodlands weave. Manhart and helmsman hawked the horizon with Zeiss zeal. Serendipity struck. Distant dialects drifted on the breeze. We wormed westward. I witnessed the apparition. Russian rearguard gliding eastward across the ice. Fur-hatted phalanx furled in white smocks, while from oriental verge, a deuce of horse-drawn sleds, laden low with loaves and lead, harnesses harnessed to shaggy steeds steaming in the strain, emerged from emerald eaves, rendezvous rigged in the rink's midst. Manhart marshaled a meander northwest, mirroring their meridian, arcing to ambush's arm. Midway merger, westward wend with wagons wedded. We winged to western wedge antecedent. Herwig's Norsemen nipping crossed their spoor unseen, nesting in needled nook. Manhart's moiety mirrored opposite. Third squad sequestered in shadow. Russians rambled, reposeful as rustics. Manhart menaced at meter 50. Rucky Verk. Or as I've on. Compliance's clarion in Cyrillic. Consternation's cascade. They countered with copper-jacketed courtesy, hailing havoc from harnessed hides, blind to our blur. Skis shed like serpent skins we scattered long the littoral. Fire withheld as furies fomented. Manhart knee-kneeling gainst knotty bowl, binocular the bedlam, bellowing bale fire. Under rifleman's riposte, crackling chorus, pinning pins. Subgun sentinels surged. Snow's snare slowing to stutter steps. Cover claimed in churned drifts twixt leaps, while we whipped the welkin with aimed ire. Ivan's inexorably inexpiable. Their tattoo tapered, though tenacious titans tenaciously traded. Proximity's peril. We paused the parry. Manhart's men manifesting, hind, the hindmost harness. Subgun snarl sealed the symphony. Over an obloquy. Ascent. Herwig's hostage, hands heavenward. Herded rearward. Sole survivor of the slaughter. Null nicks on our notch. Among the annihilated. Ski battalion satrap, stiffening their stand stoutness. Papers purloined from pockets. Dispatches damp with destiny. Disclose the dredge. Sleds sagging with sustenance. Staples swiped for our supper. Tardiness taboo. Though 20 minutes melee. Alarms Angelus assuredly aroused the afterguard. Northwest to Lake 17th lap. Von Hartmann's vigil venue. Our valiant vanquished, Ski's scourge, lagged lamentably. Prisoner plotting like a penguin on planks. Minds minced neath our meander. A judicious jape, joyed by the jar behind. An hour's hike hence. Afternoon's amber. Von Hartmann's haven. Nigh 20 hours Odyssey ossified our ossature. Trine hours trek tantalized. Von Hartmann's vanguard. Duo Akia's a quiver, annexed our ark, towing a tolling trove. 3 Teutons, tigers tamed in tussle prior, exhumed from winter's womb, canvas cradled for cemetery's caress. Von Hartmann's been vanished to vex a vexing vanguard inferred infesting the interstice. We, mandate met, mellowed in the meld, yet diurnal's duress. 24 hours haul, skirmishes scar, sapped to senescence. Hours hiatus heralded havoc. Small arms staccato from stern, Von Hartmann's vortex, round 17th shore. Lull's legacy, surmise's shadow. Afternoon's anathema. Artillery's aria, mortar's moan, Malay's manifest, melee's magnitude magnified. We winged west unscathed. Von Hartmann's vanguard bemoosed vespertine, 30's 30. 5 sundered. 15 scathed, sepulchred in sleigh's somber row for the firth where I'd footed first. Von Hartmann vanward in the valediction. Wildfires whisper, mortars molly sun mid-march. Norsemen's nadir neighbored. Obloquy o'er our outlay, though Ivan's invoice incalculable. Von Hartmann's vanishing vexed viscerally. Paragon perished. Paradigm of the paladin modern. Patrol's prelude. His poise paternal. Limp's legacy lingering like a laurel's leaf. Forsaken's flicker. Frontier's familiarity frayed. Manhart's missive, day's dusk. Cabin's convocation. Tome tendered. Homson's homage. Heart's haven. Stool settle for fireplace's flicker. Crudely caulked clay and cob. Heart of the hearth. Log's legacy lingering in the low-ceilinged lair of axe-hewn aspen. walls whispering of winter's past. Furniture's frugality, trestle and three-legged throne, relics of rustics routed. Erstwhile enclave of earth's embrace, family fled with flocks faint bleat, pastoral's pall. Homson's hue entire, Manhart mused, growth's genesis. Isaac and Inga's ingress at Salanra, sod and simplicity's sacrament. Affirmation's hush, pyre's prattle prevailed, musings meandering the Malay's maze, war's warp whisking us to this Nordic nook, alien yet akin through author's alchemy, fjord folk's fable. Manhart's melancholy mantled, von Hartmann's void vortex, Westphalia's wasteland, kin caboodle cremated in conflagration's claw, Burger's bones beneath the barrage. War's wheel warped, not foeman's forte alone, but fatherland's flambeau fanned gainst itself. Europe's elder, eviscerating its entrails, crimson carve old world's viscera. Bolshevism's banquet beckons the bereft. Kin's chronicle, Brunswick's bastion, walls ward, far-famed facade, Issa's idol incinerated, tinder to the tempest's torch. Mother's missive mourned, Peter, Luftwaffenhelferlad, Flax fledgling, mid-emplacement's echo, fourth FYRD in the fray, father's footfall in Italia's olive, Nick's novitiate in Saumur's saled arms. Consolation's crumb, allies axiom, unconditional's ultimatum, unyielding, unyoking, all yield, terminus ternary, Teuton's terminus or Titans. Mandate manifest, more the marches, gainst Marx's minions, medals measure. Manhart's mirage, mandate unmarred, Europa's ethos emergent, Finn's fortitude, Norsemen's nerve, volunteers vow from Frankreich's fields to Danmark's dales, Belgica's bastions, Netherlands' nooks, Helvetia's heights. Accord's anthem, Philip's Pharos propelled my pledge, Viking's vanguard, now Nord's notch. Viking's vicar, Vigil's veer, Hospital's hiatus, NCO's notch, Eastern egress. Iron's insignia, Infernal's interlude. Vikings vouchsafe, 5T-34's toppled, happenstance's harvest, obliques ablation, turrets turn tardy to my pack's parry. Pyre's pastime, conflagration's canticle, cordwood's chorus. Ranks rift-riven, reverence's root, rapport's ramble in resonance's realm. Easter's eve evoked my egress, regiment's requisition, rifleman's requiem. Sniper's spiked sundered squad sergeant. Novel niche, squad shift bunker's barter, subgun snarl, pistols per hour, K-98's kiss. Emplacements esoterica, northern notch, vista's vastness veined with veiled valas, arboreal accents sparse as sympathy. Russians recede, northward notch, Lake 70's eastern elbow, flats fun in solstice's swelter, ribs ragged rise. Trenches, tether tenuous. Shallow shadow, sniper snare, dawn's dirge for predecessor's perdition. Assignment's allure, stricker summons, Sudderoller's sibling from Stamheim's Starksal, reception's radiance. Shaper's summons, squad scrutiny, Bing's bastion, Alsatian's anchor, Sulla scar, Calm's colossus, Cold's crucible, Cup's consequence nil. Autoburger, Bayern's baron, Burger's blood. Führer's firebrand. Family's font from father's fallow to fortune's forge, tears torrent postot's tipple. April's aurora, snow's shroud thinning, equinox's echo, dawn's decorum diurnal. Vigil's vigil, MG's maw bow frozen fief, vault's vastness vaulting, southeast strata, stratus spread zenith zoned, serene stasis. Dawn's dissolve, pink's pallor twixt firs fathom, orange's opulence o'erflowing, cloud's canticle. Violet's veil, lavender's lilt, saffron's serenity. Scope's sweep, sector's scrutiny, Russian's rookery, fur-capped phantoms flitting, parapet's pop, embrasure's echo, careless calibration, reticle's revelation. Proximity's pang, horde's hue, occidental's obverse, church's desecration, swine's sty. Strangeness sting, alien's aura, uncouth's uncanniness, fright's frisson. Soviet ski savants, Stalin's select. Yet yields, chorale's chime and onion-domed orthodoxia, Tchaikovsky's torrent from soul's symphonic soil. Reverie's rupture, officer's ingress, shaper's shadow, 12th's progeny, Junkerschul's jewel. Hansen's heraldry, battalion's bulwark, Pip's prestige, Braid's braid. Renown's renown, Rigor's regent, Bravery's beacon, Camaraderie's caress. Youth's yoke, Juvenile's jaw, Vigor's vessel. Reports right, Salute snap, Scope seizure, Enemy's espy, 12 th's parley. Mandates muster, Nocturnal snatch, Combat's clarion, Prisoner's prize. Shaper's shard, Flank's fidelity, MG's mantle. Bunker's breath, Blaze's bite, Bocce's bouquet, Leather's legacy, Damp's dirge. Carbide's corona, Squad's silhouette, Ceiling's clasp, White Helm's ward, Anorak's armor. Assault's accouter, Grenade's girdle, Automatic's arsenal, Belt's burden. Trio's tally, Belt's ballast, MG-34's embrace, Number 1's nerve. Silence's shroud, Mission's mosaic, Breach's breach, Bunker's burrow, Dawn's dragnet. Equanimity's elixir, Squad's supremacy, Leadership's lodestar, Cunning's crown, Cool's covenant. Face's facade, Stern's stoicism, Cigarette's spark, Exit's enclave, Hood's helm. Explosives entombment. Penal's pall, Infraction's indictment, Laxity's lash, Liquor's lure, Mutiny's murmur. Misprision's misdemeanor, Maiden's molest. Wire's warden, Mind's meridian, Demolition's dirge. Gloom's grip, Discipline's dirge, Presence's portent. Sergeant's signal, Sally start. Eternity's echo, Adjournment's ache. Leader's luminescence, Tide turns, Tally-ho. Gear's grasp, Assault's avant, Support's equal, Stove swallow, Cigarette cinder. Trench's tether, Battalion's bastion, Remark's ripple, Name's nod, Salute sweep. Smile shard, Dawn's dalliance. Unseen's usher, Trunk's tether, Expanse's echo, 70 meters menace, Embrasure's ebon. Foresight's fix, Wham Wham's whisper, Charge's clarion, Gap's genesis. Flare's flare, MG's malevolence, Belt's belch, Tracer's trail, Recoil's ram, Bipod's beat. Silence's seal, Engineer's egress. Flare's flock, MG's reprise, Burst bomb, Charge's chasm, Detonation's dirge. Parapet's plunge, Subgun's snarl, Grenade's growl, Emplacement's evisceration. Minute's melee, Burst burp, Melee's murmur, Mortar's murmur. Burp's burial, Hush's herald, Team's trek, Flank's fire, MG's muzzle. Belt's feed, Tracer's tango, Right's roar. Howitzer's hymn, Mungo's mute. Pop's portent, Wham's wail, Crater's clasp. Thunder's tide, Stiff stasis, Barrage's baptism, Hope's hook. Last's liturgy, Howitzer's hail, Mungo's muffle. Flare's flicker, Assault's absence, Dawn's drag. Messenger's missive, Reprise's requiem, Prisoner's perdition. Howitzer's hymn, Impact's inferno, Gap's gale. Fire's fade, Small arm's snarl, Surprise's sting. Jump's jubilee, MG's mantle, Artillery's arc pop's plague, Swish's scourge, Belly's bind. Dawn's dirge, Signal summons, Expanse's exposure. Ditch's deliverance, Howitzer's edge. Bunker's breath, Cigarette solace, Survival surge, Integrity's illusion. Reports right, Battalion's bivouac, Prisoner's poise, Interpreter's inquisition, Offensive's oracle. Success's seal, Soldier's symmetry. Casualties calculus, Messenger's memento, Penal's pardon, Wire's ward. Cloud's canticle, Color's cascade, Immobility's idol. Afternoon's ache, Stricker's stride, Sun's striations, Medic's mound. Ikea's icon, Canvas's caress, Sheet shroud, Wax's wound, Next notch, Anorak's azure. Shock shard, Comrade's chronicle, Death's domicile. Self-spectre, Duty's dirge, Former's query. Imminence's intimate, Sullen's shadow. Sheets settle, Snow's sigh, Dusk's descent, Bark's bruise, Spring's susurrus. June's jubilee, Natal's notch, Kiastinki's keel, Winter's wane. Solstice's surfeit, Warmth's wave, Sun's sweep, 20 hours hegemony. Light's lux, Color's kaleidoscope. Snow's surrender, Green's genesis, Earth's exhalation, Pine's perfume, Humus's hum, Moss's musk. Swamp's swell, Moisture's mire, Mosquito's maelstrom, Myriad's miasma. Birch's blaze, Flower's flare, Berry's blush, Grass's garland, Lichen's lace. Uniform's unveiling, Winter's white, Kama's cloak, Cap's camouflage. Helm's hood. Veil's verdure. Invisibility's ink. Wildwood's weave. Offensive's omen. Winter's wane. Summer's swamp. Stasis's span. Respite's ransom. Bunker's bind. Nerve's nadir. Watches wear. Dark's dirge. Escape's elixir. Sun's surfeit. Hollow's haven. Wind's ward. Mosquitoes. Moratorium. Bear's bask. Sunbeam suckle. Exuberance's echo. Eye's eclipse. Lyce's liturgy. Shirt's scourge. Wonder's whisper. Survival's sacrament. Spring's sting. Thor's thunder. Trench's tether. Shallow's shadow. Bullet's bite. Hiss's horror. Stumble's specter. Heinrich's horror. Pallor's phantom. Schnaps's salve. Birthday's bomb. Heinrich's homage. Bottle's bounty. Squad's sip. Leaves largesse. Soldatenheim's summons. 24 hours haven. Lodge's lore. Timber's triumph. Engineer's edifice. Warning's wink. Heinrich's hedge. Expectancy's echo. SB for thyself. Trail's tango. Drink's dance. Weather's wing. Bounce's buoyancy. Woodland's weave. Hill's hump. Hollow's hush. Swamp's sponge. Brook's babble. Corduroy's creek. Bridge's bend. Sky's splendor. Azure's arch. Cumulus's crown. Artillery's absence. Tension's thaw. Release's rush. Solitude's song. Rear's repose. Untouched utopia. Pack's passage. Groom's grin. Nod's nod. Ear's flicker. Load's legacy. Gun's gesture. Veteran's vaunt. Contrast's clarion. Lookout's lure. Treeless throne. View's vista. Hill's hush. Swamp's shimmer. Lake's luster. Land's swell. Beauty's bolt. Sincerity's surge. Joy's jubilee. Sorrow's soot. Fear's fade. Rock's repose. Spell's surrender. Embraces ecstasy. Love's lumen. Land's legacy. Romance's reverie. Death's domicile. Tranquility's toll. Hunter's hymn. 2,000 years echo. Mosquitoes melee. Exaltation's exile. Lunch's lure. Goulash's glory. Noodle's nest. Phil's feast. Ration's rarity. Youth's yen. Bar's ballet. Nurse's nod. Voice's velvet. Turmoil's tide. Women's ward. Dresses dazzle. Gray's grace. Apron's allure. Tidiness's taunt. Confusion's crest. Brushes burn. Fleece flight. Newsreel's nadir. Eastern's echo. Panzer's panache. Infantry's ire. Propaganda's pang. Picture's purity. Combat's cant. Text's tumult. Falsity's forge. Ball's burlesque. Tchaikovsky's tryst. Nadeshda's narrative. Bittersweet's bomb. Music's maelstrom. Destitution's dirge. Release's riptide. Pity's paean. Peter's plaint. Nadejda's nadir. Self-sigh. Pathetique's pathos. Cholera's claw. Adagio's avalanche. Tears' torrent. Theater's thrust. Sun's salve. Morbid's melt. Mission's musing. Reality's return. Food's forage. Sweet surfeit. Solstice's sequel. Sunset's vigil. Lookouts linger. Offensive's onset. Thunder's toll. North's nadir. Barrage splays. 12th's plight. Energy's excess. Breach's birth. Counter's claw. Dig's dirge. Proximity's peril. Howitzer's im. Mortar's moan. Withdrawal's wake. Harbinger's hint. Thunder's thread. Worry's weave. Norge's nadir. Outpost soused. Manheart's mystery. Uneasiness's undercurrent. A life's allure. Thunder's tide. Night's nullity. Stuka's scream. Magnitude's measure. Cenazero's cipher. Lake's locus. Hut's hold. Hill's hump. Wence's waste. Bog's bound. Task's terror. Seven's siege. Thrust's thorn. Alert's aurora. July's jaunt. Shaper's sprint. Bunker's breach. CP's chaos. Sergeant's swarm. Gear's graft. Ration's ream. Coca's courtesy. Charity's clarion. Seriousness's sign. Scene's serenity. Squad's tableau. Chat's chime. Blouse's blot. Cap's caress. Breeze's bomb. Mosquito's moratorium. Bing's bastion. Gun's guard. Stricker's shock. Pulse's punch. Berger's block. Alty's jest. Schmidtchen's smile. Baum's banter. Heinrich's rye. Pride's pulse. Confidence's crest. Invincibility's icon. Truck's tether. Porch's perch. Oak's oracle. Wirie's watch. North's nod. Road's ripple. Wooden's wave. Hill's heave. Horizon's hump. Sun's sanguine. Combat's clarion. Okinavaguba's oasis. Hut's huddle. Peninsula's prong, Yelitsa Zero's yoke, artillery's aria. Peninsula's plod, path's pinch, ground's gripe, undergrowth's undercut, mosquito's maul. Halt's hush, line's lag, gear's ground, brakes breath. Silence's shroud, weapon's weight, mule's snort, ear's ear. Load's legacy, comrade's canvas, camouflage's caress, limp's lull. White's whisper, death's dirge. Column's cadence, 25's toll, cap's clasp, veil's void, silence's sanctus. Stretcher's strain, sweat's scourge, curse's cry, swamp's sink. Way's winnow, gear's grasp, march's murmur.